Many countries have used ruthless human experimentation. In this list, we will count down the 10 most notorious cases of American human experimentation. During the 1960s, the Department for Defense carried out non-consensual radiation experiments on impoverished black cancer patients. Selected patients were told they were receiving a brand new treatment for cancer. The government was really trying to record the effects of dangerously high levels of radiation on the body. From 1960 to 1971, Dr. Eugene Seeger performed whole-body radiation experiments on over 90 severely ill black people. He crudely forged consent forms and didn't fully inform patients of what was happening. Some patients were paid $5 a month to have their genitals exposed to radioactive materials. They were given $100 for a vasectomy after the trial was over. The forced vasectomy was to stop them from producing mutant offspring. Patients were exposed to radiation levels equal to that of 7,500 X-rays. Subproject 68 was run by Dr. Donald Cameron and funded by the CIA. The aim of the project was to find ways to control minds and influence resistant ones. He took patients with anxiety disorders and carried out life-changing experiments on them. He conducted electrotherapy 30 times the strength other doctors used. He would force patients into comas for weeks or months using powerful drugs and play them noises and voice commands on loop. Many patients forgot who they were, where they were from, and even their age, as most suffered long-term amnesia. The experiments took place between 1957 and 1964 because Dr. Cameron was blackmailing high-ranking government officials with videotapes of them having sex with children. In the 1940s, US scientists were secretly testing the effects of nuclear bombs on humans. The secret human testing began during the Manhattan Project. They injected 18 people with plutonium against their will. Only 5 of the 18 patients lived longer than 20 years after injection. Between 1946 and 47, a Dr. William Sweet injected 11 patients with uranium. He did this at Massachusetts Hospital and was funded as part of the Manhattan Project. He kept deep skin tissue from the patients who died for his personal research. Operation Midnight Climax took place in safe houses in New York. Inside these houses, LSD was used on non-consenting men in order to test its effects. The CIA would pay prostitutes to lure men into these houses and then drug them with mostly LSD, but also marijuana and cocaine. A two-way mirror fitted in the bedroom allowed scientists to study the effects of drugs. In safe houses, the CIA developed methods of sexual blackmail and interrogation. After a brutally honest report, all houses were closed by 1966. Even if you find this interesting, I would advise against googling Operation Midnight Climax unless you're really into vintage porn. United States agencies and research bodies have experimented on mentally ill children for hundreds of years. The US Atomic Energy Commission fed radioactive iodine to 28 perfectly healthy children at the University of Nebraska. Iodine was a common material used in experiments. In the 1960s, over 100 Alaskans were reportedly exposed to iodine. Between 1955 and 1960, Sonoa State Hospital was the in-place to abandon your mentally ill child. The parents, however, didn't know their children would be subjected to extreme experimentation. Children were given milk laced with radiation. I'm told that most children had their brain removed after they died, and that also around 1,400 children died at the hospital. By the 1940s, the US Army was testing bioweapons on its own soldiers. Army scientists sprayed soldiers with mustard gas and other skin-burning chemicals without their consent. The gas would cause extreme pain, swelling, and chemical burns. In order to test the usefulness of safety clothing and equipment, they would lock low-ranking soldiers into small chambers and spray them with mustard gas. It is unknown how many people died during these experiments. Agent Orange is a herbicide that was used to destroy the crops of Vietnam during the war. 42 million liters of Agent Orange were dropped on Vietnam. Agent Orange was injected into people for testing purposes. Mostly captured Viet Cong were experimented on by Dr. Albert Kligman, who was funded by the US Army and the Dow Chemical Company. Although unconfirmed, Dr. Kligman is rumoured to have injected 468 times the amounts he was allowed to. Kligman was allowed to continue testing Agent Orange and many other products which had an even worse effect, causing the defamation of thousands of people. In 1931, Dr. Cornelius Rhodes began infecting Puerto Rico with cancer. He was an American pathologist who, after being sponsored by Rockefeller Institute, set about infecting individual Puerto Ricans with cancer cells. In his own words, Puerto Ricans are the dirtiest, laziest, most degenerate and thievish race of men, so it's easy to comprehend why he found killing at least 13 of them so easy. Dr. Rhodes went on to achieve great success, being made the Vice President of the American Cancer Society. With this happening just 80 years ago, it's not hard to understand why Puerto Rico still hasn't been granted statehood. The name of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment suggests what the focus was on. It is one of the most infamous studies ever conducted. Starting in 1932 and lasting 40 years, the US Health Service injected rural African Americans with syphilis knowingly. They told the subjects that they were receiving medical care free from the government. 600 agricultural workers were infected with syphilis from Macon County, Alabama alone. They were given free food, healthcare, and burial insurance, but were never told that they had syphilis. They were also never treated for it, even after penicillin had been established as an effective treatment for syphilis. The study came to an end in 1972. Number 1 on the list also involves syphilis, and also was carried out by the US Health Department, but this one took place outside of North America. From 1946 to 1948, US-funded doctors injected people in Guatemala with syphilis. The aim of the study was to find out how penicillin could be used to treat disease, if it could at all. Their strategy was to find prostitutes with syphilis and pay them to have sex with soldiers and mental patients. They also injected syphilis straight into the spines of people. Records from the time are hard to find, but we know at least 83 people died as a result of the experiment, and as many as 1/3 of the subjects were left untreated at the end of it. And that brings us to the end of the list today, so subscribe to more and remember, stay black.